The moment of surrender is unlike any other experience in life. It begins quietly, often when we are tired of striving, when our own strength has run dry, and we realize that no matter how much we try, something within us is still missing. It is a deeply personal moment, a moment when the heart begins to recognize that it cannot carry the weight of life alone, that our plans and efforts, while sincere, are not enough to bring the peace and fulfillment we seek. Surrender is not a one-time decision, but a series of choices, a willingness to lay down the desire to control, to step aside from our own ambitions, and to place our lives in hands far wiser, far stronger than our own. It begins with honesty, the brutal honesty of admitting that we are powerless over the circumstance around us, over the fears that haunt us, and over the inner struggles we often hide from the world. In that honesty, there is humility. And in humility, the door opens for divine work to begin. Surrender is not passive. It is an active, conscious act of the will, an acknowledgement that life is too complex, too heavy, and too fleeting to navigate alone. It requires courage, for there's vulnerability in letting go. To surrender is to say, I cannot do this on my own, and I trust a power greater than myself to guide me. It is not weakness, though it may feel fragile at first. There is strength in recognizing limits, in admitting that our understanding is incomplete, and that there is a force of infinite wisdom, ready to take our faltering steps and transform them into purposeful movement. This act of surrender often comes after a long period of struggle, when we have exhausted every option and yet the outcome remains uncertain. The heart grows weary of trying to fix things with its own methods, and in that exhaustion, the soul begins to open, like a flower turning toward the sun, ready to receive life-giving light and warmth. The moment of surrender often carries with it a profound sense of relief. There is a weight lifted, a burden released, a quiet peace that whispers into the chaos of our thoughts. We may feel fear, for the unknown is always intimidating. But even in that fear, there is a strange reassurance, a sense that we are no longer alone. Surrender allows us to stop fighting against the flow of life, to cease the exhausting struggle against circumstances beyond our control. In letting go, we discover a freedom that cannot be manufactured by human effort, a freedom that opens the heart to receive guidance, wisdom, and a deep, sustaining peace. Surrender does not require perfection. It does not demand that we have everything in order, or that we have resolved every past mistake. It simply asks for willingness, a readiness to open the hands of the heart, trust, to release the illusion of control and invite a higher power to lead. Each moment of surrender builds upon the next, a continual practice of saying, I will follow, will trust, I will let go, and in each act, the soul grows lighter, the heart grows fuller, and life begins to take on a new, unimagined direction. Experiencing God's presence is a moment that defies explanation, a reality that touches the soul in ways that words often struggle to capture. It is not a presence we manufacture or summon by human effort, but a divine reality that finds us when our hearts are open, when we are ready to receive. The experience begins subtly, sometimes as a quiet whisper, a gentle stirring within the spirit, a sense that something far greater than ourselves is near. It may start as a warmth that spreads through the chest, a light that seems to illuminate the darkest corners of the mind, or a peace that seeps into every anxious thought. In that presence, time feels different. The ordinary becomes extraordinary, and the soul recognizes that it is held by a power that is both tender and infinitely strong. There is an immediacy to this experience, a reality that overwhelms human understanding. We feel seen fully and completely, not judged for our past mistakes or weaknesses, but embraced as we are. The heart that has carried burdens for years suddenly begins to feel lighter, as though the weight of doubt, fear, and uncertainty has been lifted in an instant. It is a moment of recognition, a divine affirmation that we are never truly alone, that there is a power at work in the universe, guiding, healing, and restoring. The presence of God is not distant, it is intimate, near enough to touch, yet transcendent enough to remind us that we are part of a greater plan, a larger story written beyond our comprehension. Experiencing God's presence transforms the ordinary into the sacred. The air feels different, charged with a kind of energy that invigorates the soul. Thoughts that once seemed overwhelming become clear, and decisions that were paralyzing become illuminated with understanding. In this presence, we gain insight not just into our circumstances, but into ourselves, into the hidden depths of the heart where faith, courage, and hope reside. It awakens a sensitivity to the spiritual, a perception that every encounter, every challenge, and every blessing is touched by divine orchestration. The encounter with God's presence also stirs emotion that cannot be contained. Tears may flow freely, sometimes for reasons we do not fully understand. As the Spirit connects with a love so profound it cannot be named, hearts are softened, pride is replaced with humility, and every resistance begins to dissolve. There is a power in this presence that heals past wounds, restores brokenness, and ignites a passion for life that cannot be quenched by ordinary circumstances. It is both comforting and empowering, a gentle strength that fills the empty spaces of the soul and pushes the spirit toward obedience, trust, and joy. This experience is available to all who are willing, to those who are ready to quiet their hearts and open themselves completely. It is not reserved for the perfect, the learned, but for anyone who is ready to receive. In this presence, the impossible becomes possible, the unseen becomes visible, and the soul begins to recognize its true worth and purpose. The awareness of God's nearness leaves an imprint, a lasting mark that reshapes thoughts, attitudes, and actions, inviting us into a life that is vibrant, empowered, and deeply aligned with divine will. Freedom from fear, doubt, and burdens is one of the most profound experiences a soul can know, a liberation that comes not from human effort but from the divine touch. For many of us, life is weighed down by worries, anxieties, and the invisible chains of past failures. Fear can grip the mind, paralyzing us from moving forward, while doubt whispers lies that cloud our judgment and rob us of confidence. Burdens, both seen and unseen, can become so heavy that they feel impossible to carry. Yet, in the moment when God takes control, these chains begin to break one by one. Freedom begins as a whisper, a soft, yet undeniable assurance that the weight does not belong to us alone, that we were never meant to bear it entirely on our own. This freedom comes when the heart finally surrenders, when the spirit stops struggling to control every outcome and allows a higher power to intervene. Fear, which once seemed so strong, begins to shrink in the presence of a love that cannot be shaken. Doubt, which whispered constantly, loses its voice in the clarity and certainty of divine truth. Burdens, which have pressed heavily on the shoulders and weighed on the spirit for years, are lifted, replaced by a lightness that feels almost miraculous. It is a freedom that cannot be earned, purchased, or forced. It is a gift that arrives in the stillness of surrender, in the quiet moments when the soul says, I cannot, but you can. In the midst of this freedom, one begins to notice the subtle yet powerful shifts within. Thoughts that were once darkened by fear are illuminated with hope. Decisions that were clouded by uncertainty are met with clarity. The heart, which may have been burdened with anxiety, begins to beat with a rhythm of peace, assurance, and courage. This is not an abstract concept. It is a tangible experience, felt in the body, heard in the mind, and embraced in the spirit. The liberation reaches deep, touching areas of the soul that had been neglected or wounded, and begins a work of restoration that is internal as it is outward. Freedom from fear, doubt, and burdens also carries with it a sense of empowerment. When fear no longer dictates actions, the soul can move forward boldly. When doubt loses its grip, faith is strengthened, and trust in the divine plan becomes unwavering. Burdens that were once unbearable become opportunities for growth and testimony, a demonstration of resilience and grace. In this freedom, life is no longer a battlefield fought alone. It becomes a journey guided by a power that knows every need, every weakness, and every strength. This liberation is transformative. It reshapes how we see ourselves, how we engage with the world, and how we respond to challenges. There is a joy in walking unburdened, a confidence in acting without fear, and a peace that surpasses understanding. It is a freedom that inspires courage, ignites hope, and restores faith, showing us that even the heaviest chains can be broken and that no obstacle is too great for The one who holds our lives in his hands, trusting God's guidance over personal plan. And understanding is a journey that begins with humility and openness of heart. So often, we rely on our own intellect, our own experience, and the strategies we have carefully constructed over the years. We make plans, set goals, and map out paths that seem certain and secure. Yet, despite our best intentions, life often does not follow the trajectory we expect. Circumstances arise that challenge our logic. Emotions stir in ways we cannot control, and outcomes unfold that leave us questioning our own wisdom. It is in these moments of uncertainty that the need for divine guidance becomes undeniable, a gentle but firm invitation to step aside from our own understanding and follow a path illuminated by a power far greater than ourselves. To trust this guidance is to believe that every step we take, every decision we face, every challenge we encounter is under the watchful care of a loving and all-knowing hand. It requires a letting go of pride and a surrender of the belief that we can navigate life on our own. When we begin to trust, we allow God to direct our steps with precision and wisdom beyond our comprehension. We learn that what we perceive as delays, obstacles, or detours are often divine appointments, carefully orchestrated to prepare us for what lies ahead. Trusting God's guidance does not mean passivity. It means actively choosing to walk in faith, to seek direction through prayer and stillness, and to obey the gentle nudges of the Spirit even when the path seems unclear. There's a profound peace that comes from placing confidence in divine guidance. The mind, once cluttered with worry and uncertainty, becomes quiet and focused. The heart, which may have been restless and anxious, finds rest in the assurance that every step is being directed by a power that understands the beginning, middle, and end of every situation. When we trust, we begin to recognize patterns and opportunities that were invisible before. We sense direction not through force or compulsion, but through an inner knowing, a gentle prompting that aligns with our deepest convictions and values. Life becomes less about struggling against circumstances and more about moving in harmony with a higher rhythm, a flow that carries us toward purpose and fulfillment. Trust also reshapes our perspective on challenges. When personal plans fail or understanding falls short, we are no longer discouraged or defeated. Instead, we see these moments as openings for divine intervention, spaces where God's wisdom can surpass our own. Trust transforms fear into courage, doubt into confidence, and confusion into clarity. It allows the heart to embrace uncertainty with hope, knowing that even when the way forward is unseen, guidance is available, reliable, and unwavering. Walking in trust strengthens the spirit and expands our capacity to receive blessings. Every decision becomes an opportunity to witness the faithfulness of God. Every step taken in obedience reinforces the truth that life guided by divine wisdom is richer, fuller, and more meaningful than life built solely on human understanding. Trust is the bridge between our limitations and God's infinite possibilities, a bridge that carries us safely through storms, uncertainties, and moments of hesitation toward a life defined by purpose, peace, and unshakable faith. Transformation is one of the most remarkable gifts that occurs when God takes control of a life. It is not simply a superficial change, a shift in circumstances, or a temporary sense of relief. Transformation reaches deep into the core of who we are, reshaping our hearts, our minds, and the very way we perceive ourselves and the world around us. It begins subtly, often unnoticed at first, in the quiet moments when old habits, fears, and limitations start to lose their grip. The change is gentle yet powerful, an unfolding that gradually aligns our desires, thoughts, and actions with a higher purpose. Every aspect of life begins to reflect a new order, a clarity that surpasses human understanding, and a peace that transcends ordinary experience. This transformation begins with the heart, where the deepest wounds and the most hidden struggles reside. God does not merely touch the surface, He goes straight to the center, healing pain, restoring brokenness, and instilling hope where despair once reigned. The burdens we have carried for years, shame, guilt, fear, and doubt, begin to dissolve as we allow His presence to saturate every part of our being. Old patterns of thought are replaced with renewed perspective, and the soul, once heavy with anxiety, learns to trust, to hope, and to rejoice in ways that were impossible before. The process may involve moments of discomfort, as growth often requires letting go of familiar but limiting ways of thinking. Yet each step is infused with grace, strengthening the spirit and deepening our capacity for love, faith, and resilience. Transformation also extends outward, affecting how we interact with others and how we engage with the world. Relationships that were strained can be healed as the light of understanding and forgiveness replaces resentment and misunderstanding. Work, purpose, and calling take on new meaning as actions are guided, not by obligation but by a sense of divine direction and fulfillment. Even challenges and setbacks are seen differently, no longer as obstacles to defeat, but as opportunity to experience God's power, to grow in patience, and to witness the unfolding of His perfect plan. This external evidence of transformation reinforces the internal change, confirming that life under divine guidance is not only different but significantly more abundant, purposeful, and meaningful. The experience of transformation is often accompanied by a heightened sense of clarity and insight. Decisions that were once confusing or overwhelming become guided by wisdom that seems to flow effortlessly. Priorities are realigned, and the distractions that once consumed attention fade away. The heart becomes attuned to the voice of guidance, recognizing prompting and opportunities that might have been overlooked before. The transformation is holistic, touching every area of life, infusing energy, joy, and peace that cannot be manufactured or replicated by human effort. Ultimately, this transformation is a testament to the power of surrender. It shows that when life is fully placed in divine hands, what emerges is not just a healed or improved self, but a renewed, vibrant, and empowered life capable of experiencing miracles, blessings, and fulfillment far beyond what could have been imagined. It is a journey that continues, a process of unfolding grace, and an ongoing opportunity to witness the depth and breadth of God's work in our lives. The power of complete surrender is a force that transforms every area of life in ways that human effort alone cannot achieve. It is not a casual agreement or a simple acknowledgement. It is a wholehearted, intentional giving of oneself to a higher power, a willing placing of every thought, every desire, every ambition, and every fear into hands infinitely capable and infinitely loving. Surrender begins with an honest assessment of our own limitations, recognizing that we cannot control everything, cannot solve every problem, and cannot dictate the outcomes of life with perfect precision. It is a moment of humility, a recognition that the heart and mind, brilliant as they may be, are no match for the wisdom, understanding, and power of a divine presence that sees beyond what we can imagine. Complete surrender carries a weightless freedom that is unlike anything else in the world. When we release control over the circumstances that have burdened us for so long, we discover a peace that is not dependent on conditions or outcomes. There is a profound relief in letting go of the need to manipulate, plan, or anticipate every detail. And in that release, the soul experiences a new level of openness to guidance, inspiration, and direction. It is in the act of surrender that we allow miracles to unfold, for we cannot fully receive what we try to force or manufacture on our own. The power of surrender lies not in giving up, but in stepping into alignment with a source of strength far greater than ourselves. A source that can turn challenges into opportunities, sorrow into joy, and weakness into power. Surrender is not a one-time act. It is a continual posture, a daily, sometimes moment-by-moment choice to trust, obey, and yield to divine guidance. It requires courage because it asks us to let go of control over things we hold dear, to place our future, our reputation, and even our comfort into unknown hands. Yet in that unknown lies the certainty of divine wisdom, the assurance that every step taken under guidance is purposeful, every challenge faced is equipped with strength, and every tear shed is noticed and cherished. As we surrender more fully, we find that the burdens that once weighed heavily on our hearts begin to lift, replaced by a sense of freedom, lightness, and a confidence rooted not in our own abilities, but in the faithfulness of the one who holds our lives. The power of surrender also reveals the heart's true priorities. As we release control over the trivial and the urgent, we begin to recognize what truly matters. We gain clarity about our purpose, our calling, and the people and responsibilities that deserve our focus. The noise of worry diminishes, replaced by the quiet certainty that we are being guided toward the path we were meant to walk. Surrender transforms our perspective on every situation, every relationship, and every dream, allowing us to see life through a lens of grace, patience, and trust rather than anxiety, fear, or self-reliance. Ultimately, the power of complete surrender is transformative because it opens the door to a life lived fully under divine care. It is through surrender that we experience healing, peace, purpose, and joy that transcends understanding. It is through surrender that the ordinary becomes extraordinary, and the life we once struggled to live becomes a life that flows with clarity, meaning, and miraculous possibility. Surrender is not the end of effort. It is the beginning of a journey into the fullness of life, guided by wisdom, strength, and love that surpasses anything we could ever imagine.